to our webinar this morning. We are delighted to have Jed Dearbury from Palmetto State Teachers Association with us. He is the Director of Professional Development and Communications for this association. He's taking his time to give us a special training on how to get funded using the Donors Choose website and the Donors Choose platform. And at this time, I'm going to change the presenter to Mr. Dearbury and listen to what he has to say.
All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join me on this webinar. I'm very excited to share with you guys about DonorsChoose.org. It's a great organization, and I've been involved with it for quite some time. I began using it back in 2006 in my early childhood classroom here in South Carolina, my first grade classroom. And I heard about it from my principal, and she said, it's a great opportunity for you to get items that you need for your classroom, jump in there and see what happens. And here I am 9 years later with over 100 projects funded, and over $25,000 worth of materials came into my classroom. Now you see here on your screen, this is a shot of my classroom here. There's lots of things in this classroom that came from Donors Choose. You see these stools, they're hokey stools, the shelving, the carpets, the more shelving here, iPads, 3D printer, all these books over here, and this just transformed my classroom. There's not a corner of my classroom that you do not see Donors Choose. Now, all of the information I'm going to be sharing with you is on the website, www.mrdearbury.com. This is my class website. And if you go to the Teacher tab and drop down to the Donors Choose tab there, you will see my presentation here. And it's not really a slideshow. It's just me going to talk you through some things that are some tips for writing Donors Choose projects. As with any good teacher, I have to tell you that to start Donors Choose writings, before you jump in there and start writing, you need to look at some excellent Donors Choose projects. Now you can go to donorschoose.org and you can read lots of projects, but if you go to donorschoose.org/Mr. Dearbury, you will get to see my projects. So if you click on that link, it will open up my public page here on Donors Choose, and you can see there 107 projects completed. And as you scroll down through here, you will see the different projects that I've written. Everywhere you see a blue title, you will see an example of a project. Now, you can click on one of those titles, open it up, and you can literally see the body of a Donors Choose project. Now, I want to point out here that here is one paragraph, 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs, and 4 paragraphs. So hopefully, as you see that, you think maybe Donors Choose is a little bit easier to accomplish than, say, a grant that you may have heard of. Lots of times grants are a little more wordy, they're a little more lengthy, they require a lot of evidence and data, and Donors Choose is more about connecting you and your classroom with donors around the country so that they can help partner with you and your classroom and your students and your dreams and your visions for your classroom. So if you look here, let me break it down to you, the different paragraphs. Number 1 is just a general paragraph opening a hook statement, if you will, that gets your donors engaged with your project. The second paragraph, you dig in a little bit deeper about what your school looks like, maybe the demographics, the poverty, the socioeconomic status of the area that you're in. Paint a picture, if you will. I'm going to skip this 3rd paragraph for just a second and jump down here to the 4th paragraph. The 4th paragraph is your what Donors Choose likes to call your bring it home statement. It is a paragraph where you convince your donor one more time why they need to partner with you. And I'm going to go back here. Paragraph 3 is the meat of your project. This is what you are asking for specifically. Now, in this specific project, I had come across a series of books as a little kid called The Little Miss and Mr. series by Roger Hargraves, and it is a great series to have in your early childhood classroom. You may not recognize it right off the bat. Let me scroll in here. I'll show you some pictures. Maybe you recognize some of these books. and these characters, Mr. Happy and Little Miss Sunshine and those kinds of things. Now you see here there are pictures of my students. They're holding the books. That is part of your project requirements once it is funded. You have to post 6 pictures of the items being used in your classroom. That's to show the donors that the materials that they paid for arrived exactly as they were told they would. And then also you have to write a thank you note. Now, if you can't tell from my voice, I am from the South, and in the South we write thank you notes, and that's how our mom taught us. So this should just come as common sense to most people, that a thank you note for somebody giving you money is just something that you need to do. Okay? So the first step there is just to go through and read some of these projects, get an idea of the wording and how it's laid out. The good thing about this is when you get into Donors Choose, they don't want a long, doctoral thesis, if you will, on what you're doing in your classroom. They actually limit the number of characters in each paragraph. So they don't want this long piece of writing. They want it clear and concise. What do you need and why do you need it? And what are you going to do with it? Okay? So as you read through these projects, read through some of mine, read through other ones that are on the page there at donorschoose.org, and that'll give you a great idea. Okay? Next step, after you get a good feel for the writings here, what you want to do is you want to start to get a vision of your project. You want your project to start to come together, the items that you want for your classroom. Now let me tell you here, you need to use the Donors Choose vendors. The Donors Choose vendors, if you will click there, you'll go to the donorschoose.org site, and it lists the vendors. Now, what are vendors? Vendors are people who work closely with Donors Choose to ensure that all the packaging, pricing, everything is streamlined, and the materials get to you as quickly as possible. Now, if you scroll down through here, you'll see all the different vendors that are offered through Donors Choose. And a lot of people ask me, well, why do you want to use the vendors? Well, these are people who have partnered with Donors Choose, and Donors Choose has a system set up where you are given points to actually write your projects. Points that where you use the vendors, you only consume a few points when you use vendors, whereas you go off site and use something that is not one of these vendors, it costs you more points. Okay, so as you scroll down through here, you see a lot of neat vendors that you could probably use for things in your classroom. Kaplan's a great early learning. Woodwind and Brass integrate the arts and the music. All these other ones you may find. Dick's Sporting Goods is popular. Staples and Dick's Sporting Goods both are brand new this year to Donors Choose as vendors. Carolina Biological Supply, lots of people use that for science supplies. Classic Classroom Magazines. Blick Art Materials, Best Buy. Quill, great office supply company. I've written lots of projects there. Amazon Business, let me tell you quickly, if you do choose Amazon Business as a vendor, the items that you put in your project must be eligible for Amazon Prime shipping. This is to guarantee that your project materials are available at the time that your project is funded. AKJ Books, a great one for a class set of books, and Lakeshore to me is like the upper echelon of teacher supply stores because their products are really, really great. No, they did not pay me to say that. I just like their stuff. So I mentioned to you that it costs points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go to Donors Choose, and I'm going to go to my page, my project pages, and I'm going to show you where it says right here about points. It says you have 182 points. Okay. Well, there's an error there popping up. But what I have these points for, this is I've earned points through my interaction with Donors Choose. Now, when you start your very own Donors Choose account, you only have 3 points. Okay. Now, it costs different points for different things. If you write a project on these vendors, $100 to $800, it'll cost you 1 point. $800 to $2,000, it costs you 2 points. If it over $2,000, it'll cost you all 3 points. Okay. Now, I remember I said if you write for a project that's off of these vendors, it will cost you 6 points. So when you sign up, you only have 3 points. Can you use anything besides these vendors? No. The purpose in that is to get you familiar with the site and is to connect with these vendors that have partnered with Donors Choose. Now, what can you do off-site with the points? You could set up a classroom visitor. You can set up a classroom field trip. You could find a vendor that is not listed here and order materials for their projects, but it does cost you 6 points. The way that you earn more points is by getting projects funded and submitting your feedback on time. Your feedback being your thank you notes and those pictures. Okay? So you're going to read some projects, see how they are worded, and then you're going to use the Donors Choose vendors to get excited and start some shopping. But number 3, my tip here, this is very important, is keep your first projects between $100 and $400. Now, why is that? You say, Jed, I want to have a classroom set of iPads. I want a class set of the hokey stools like you had. How can I get those when my projects are only $100 to $400? Well, the trick there is that you write multiple projects for the same item and keep your projects low. The reason for that is there's statistics that Donors Choose that say over 80% of the projects in this price range are funded relatively quickly, with even in just a few weeks. And so the project cost lower makes the people who are giving to Donors Choose and their impact much, much greater. Also, think of it this way. If you gave $50 to a project that was $200, that's 1/4 of the project funded because of your gift. But if you gave $50 to a $2,000 project, it's going to take a while to make that impact greater. Now, always I say dream big and put that out there. You know, here in South Carolina a couple of months ago, Stephen Colbert funded every project in the state of South Carolina that was live at the time that he made the donation. So if people had those big projects on there, that was awesome. But the day-to-day normal project funding, the lower the cost, the more likely it is to get funded. The way that I got my hokey stools was because I wrote for 2 or 3 stools at a time. It took me over a year and a half to get the entire set for my classroom. But like the tortoise and the hare, slow and steady wins the race, right? So keep those first projects between $100 and $400, and you want to make sure that you do that too, so that you don't waste all your points right out of the gate. As you do get these projects funded, your points will grow, and then you can do some things off the vendors if you choose. Now, number 4, this is important. This is what I tell everybody when they're writing their Donors Choose projects, is to use everyday language and speak from your heart. Donors don't really get all of the teacher jargon, and you want to write the project like you're talking with your close friends, sitting down at Starbucks, having a conversation where you're just telling them what it is that you want and what you want to do with it, and how it's going to impact your children and make their lives better. One of the things I love to tell people right here is a lot of times our teacher words don't make sense to non-educators. For example, in the early childhood elementary classroom, if you said you wanted to level your classroom, all of us know what that means. It means you want books that are on level for students in your classroom's various reading levels. But to the non-educator, level your classroom might mean that you want to bulldoze it. So you got to make sure that you refrain from using that in your projects. You want to connect with donors. You want to pull at their heartstrings a little bit and help them to feel connected into your classroom so that they do feel like their donation will make an impact. Now, another thing you want to know when you're starting to write projects is you want to know about partner funding opportunities. Okay? So partner funding opportunities are ways that Donors Choose and businesses around the country have worked together to get your project funded. Now, if you look right here, when you click on the partner funding link, you will see all the states. Now, this is being recorded for PET there in Tennessee, so I'm going to click on Tennessee. And now anybody in the country, you could go click on your state, but I'm going to click on this for Tennessee, and we're going to look at this. And we're going to see that there are some different options right now in Tennessee where companies want to help fund projects. Now, one right off the bat, we're not going to talk about all of these, but you can go and read them at your leisure here. But the one right at the top, it says there's a 50% match offer for team sports projects. To qualify, be sure to select team sports as a subject area when you're writing a project. If you don't personally coach a sports team, check in with your school's coaches, post a project on their behalf. Learn more before posting. Projects will be hand-selected once every week. So what this means is if you write a project, let's say it's a $400 project and it meets the qualifications here, it's going to be funded 50% right off the bat. So your $400 project is down to $200 just because you knew about this partner funding opportunity. Another partner funding opportunity is when Donors Choose works with you. So a lot of times when you write your projects, Donors Choose sends you a coupon code, and most of the time it's the word SPARK. Okay? So when they send you the word SPARK there, what's going to happen is you want to email everybody you know and say, hey, if you give to my project, Donors Choose is going to double your donation if you use the SPARK code. Why is that important? Because let's say somebody gives you $50 and they use that code on the project that Dick's Sporting Good has already matched 50% of it. We had $200. Now we are getting a $50 donation that's going to be doubled. Our project is now down to $100. So you see how very quickly the projects can be funded. So you want to take note of the partner funding opportunities. You want to know about them, and you want to keep that in your mind as you write your projects. Now, number 6, if I was live and in person, I would tell you right here to read this aloud with me. So as I read it along, read it with me. Number 6 says, tell everyone you know at least 3 times, then guess what? Tell them again. This is the most important part of what I'm going to say to you about Donors Choose. For me, at the beginning, Donors Choose was a way of getting the free materials that I needed for my students. But very quickly I realized that Donors Choose was not about free materials as much as it was me advocating for the needs of my students. It was a way for me to put out there in the public the awesome things that I was doing in my classroom, and I had to share everything that I was doing with people around my area, around the country for that matter. So I want to tell you some ways that I shared with everyone. Number 1, you need to email everybody that you know and ask them to be a part of it. Send them a link to your projects. You want to make sure that you also put it on Facebook. Number 2 is Facebook. Number 3 is Twitter. So email, Facebook, and Twitter. Those are huge. Don't be afraid to put that on there. Advocating for your children is probably the most important thing that you can do aside from love them each and every day, because they need that they need us to be that voice for them. They need us to get the materials to help make the classroom the very best that it can be. You also need to make sure that you invite your parents to be a part of the projects. Regardless of the socioeconomic status of your parents, I think it's always great to encourage and include the parents in this project, because remember, every dollar goes directly towards the materials. And if a parent can just give $1, if a parent can give $100, they should be invited and included in that process. Another thing that I tell people to often do is have a business card. You want to have a business card, and I put my actual Donors Choose link to my projects. I'll show it to you right here. This actual link, it's Mr. Dearbury. Well, let me show you. www.donorschoose.org/Mr. Dearbury. That's my public page. So I actually take that link, that right there, excuse me, that first part without all this extra junk over here, this part right here, and I copy and paste that onto my business card for everybody to use. Okay, why is that important? You might be in line at Walmart or Target, you might be at dinner with some new friends, and they ask for a way to help you, and you can drop that there for them. Now, there are other ways that you can promote your project other than Facebook or Twitter and business cards. I also work for an organization called the LilySarahGrace.org, and what we do is we actually look for projects on Donors Choose to fund if they are in line with our vision of arts-infused inquiry-based learning. If your projects focus on community, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, communication, we want to know about it. And you can come to Lily Sarah Grace, and you can hit apply now, and you can submit your Donors Choose project up to $450 for the Stepping Stone grant, up to $1,500 for the full ABLE grant. You see here that our Stepping Stone grants focuses on these 3 C's, creativity, critical thinking, and collaboration, while our full grant focuses on all 5 of the C's. Now, if you want to know more about that, you can hit apply here, and it will open up. We'll talk a little bit more about the requirements. Tells you how to create the project on Donors Choose. You actually submit the project ID number. Project ID number can be found on a project. Let's see if I clicked on this one here. And your project ID number is usually down near the bottom of the project. Let me see. Oh, this one's already been funded, so I don't know if it's got the project ID listed. It's somewhere. Let's see if we can find it. Not on here since it's been funded. I'm missing that. But all of the projects have a project ID that you would just post here, your title, your name, your email address. And here, if you want, since Donors Choose limits the amount of characters that you can type, you can expand your project here a little bit more to show us how it meets those guidelines that we're looking for. So I encourage you to think about applying for a lilysarahgrace.org grant with your Donors Choose project. Again, you write it on Donors Choose, submit it to us. So there are lots of different places out there that can fund your Donors Choose project. Number 8, this is the most important thing that you'll hear me say. The only way to get a project funded is to have one on the site. Don't let this webinar be the only thing you do with Donors Choose, and quit as soon as you end the webinar. I hope that you will go right now to donorschoose.org, get your free account, write your projects, and get going. I would love to help you if you need some help. If you go to the email me tab here at the top, go to more, and actually where it says meet Mr. Dearbury, you can email me there. And so I would be happy to do that. The email is mrdearbury@hotmail.com. I would love to connect with you on Twitter at mrdearbury1. And if you are interested in knowing more about Donors Choose, the frequently asked questions, the stats, the history, you can click on any of these tabs here, and that will take you to their page so that you can learn more about the organization. Again, contact me at mrdearbury@hotmail.com or on Twitter at mrdearbury1. Thank you so much for listening today to the webinar, and I hope you have lots of success with donorschoose.org and get lots of materials for your students. As always, my students are the best, and they deserve the best, and guess what? So do yours. So go after the materials that you need, and have a great day.